Alrighty, good morning everyone, and thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's shir should be Le'ilu Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gavriel Tzvi, and for Dovidal's grandfather, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen Zaidi, and L'Refu Shalema Bekarov, Meshalom ben Sarah Rachel, Miriam Bas Sarah, and this young boy, Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Etra. I also would like to make a very special Ilu Nishmas just for today for a dear friend of mine, who his sister unfortunately passed away yesterday. She was 30. She left over 3 little kids and a husband. And her name is Fega Bas Tzvi Aryeh, Neshama Shahavan Aliyah. Today, we are on page 94 in the art scroll for those who are following along. And we are talking about the 2 reasons that Hashem compelled a man to do ishtadlus. And yesterday we started talking about the commitment to Hashem's service, to commitment to do Hashem's will. And today we are going to talk about a different reason as to why Hashem requires man to do hishtadlus in life in order to provide themselves with their basic sustenance, and they have to work for their food and everything else that they want in life. And it's a very interesting reason because you're going to see that it's not this lofty thing necessarily, but it's something that you can also relate to on a very worldly level, as you will see in just a minute. And so he says like this: the second reason Hashem compelled man to engage in hishtadlus, so that he was kept busy in a productive way. That's the main reason. They should be kept busy and be productive on in his day-to-day life. The second reason is that if man would not have to exert himself to pursue and engage in various measures in order to obtain his livelihood, he would become smug and rebel against Hashem and run after sins. Very interesting concept. You're going to see in a minute. Let's do more detail about that. But the concept over here is that if you're not busy doing stuff that you need to be productive every single day, you're going to start wandering, and you're going to start doing different things that might not be as kosher as you might think. And would not pay attention to what he owes Hashem in return for his goodness to him. He says, Rav Av explains when we started off in the Pesach, in the introduction to Rav Av, he explained that a man's duty is to serve Hashem. That's the primary duty that we have. And so if someone is not involved in ishtadlus every single day, and he's just going to sit around and do nothing, he's going to wind up sinning. He's going to want to get into a point where he's just not paying attention, he's not focused, and he forgets about Hashem. Kamosh Nema, it says in the pasuk, it says, that a person with emptiness, they are harp and lyre and drum and flute and wine, and they're drinking parties. It says that they wind up just start partying all day, party all night, and they're just going to become just like the guys, as we might use that word. And they would not contemplate the deed of Hashem and would not look at his handiwork. This person, who every single day does not get up and have a schedule, is just going to become a really empty person. Va'amar, it also says in that a life of leisure causes a person to shirk his duties towards Hashem. And it says over there in the pasuk, Vayishman Yeshurun vayivat shemat avisa kasisa vayita shelka asahu. Yeshurun became fat and kicked. He became fat. You became thick. You became corpulent, and he deserted God, his maker. Basically, he's saying he was empty. He started just partying, doing things, and little by little, he distanced himself from Hashem. V'amru zechayim levracha, and the Chacham tell us. He says, Yafa Talmud Torah im derech sheyigia shneihem mishkachas avain. Torah study is good together with an occupation, for the exertion spent on both of them together causes sin to be forgotten. V'chol Torah she'ein ima melacha soifa b'teila v'gereres avain. Very interesting concept, he says this. He says, and Torah study that is not combined with work is destined to end and leads to sin. Meaning, if you're a person who works, you should have Torah study in your life as well. You should have a little shir, a chavrusa, whatever it is every single day. You have a little time in the day, you spend time doing that. He says, but if you only sit and learn Torah all day and no hishtadlus towards work, towards financial well-being, he says you're going to wind up kind of straying from learning Torah as well. Because I've read a few different excerpts on this, and it says it's very difficult for a person, unless their entire being, their job, like a Rebbe, or Rosh Hashiva, or a Magachir, a Mashgiach in a yeshiva, that their job is Torah is their job. But then it becomes twofold. They're learning, but that's their livelihood. So it's different. But when someone just sits and learns all day, someone who sits in Kollel, and I'm not saying exactly that, but that's what it looks like. He's saying part of that. If you have zero drive every single day against hishtadlus for your own well-being to provide for your family, then he says it's a great possibility that you're going to stray from that as well, and then you're going to wind up being empty. So he says a great combination is having a work ethic, having a learning ethic, having your schedule for davening, for learning, all that mixed together helps us not be empty, helps us not having all this free time to think and sit around and do averos. And he goes further, he says, and all the more so for a person likely to sin if he is someone who has no share in either one of them, not Torah and not in worldly occupation. He's just sitting around empty like a bum in the street and does nothing. And does not occupy his mind with either one of them, he would almost certainly degenerate into pursuing a self-indulgent lifestyle and end up chasing after sin. Man's need to be busy with obtaining a livelihood and with Torah study spear him from another pitfall. He's saying now that we understand that you need both, and it aids you from not sinning, he says that by having that combination, it helps you with another thing. He says, it was out of compassion for man that Hashem made him busy with obtaining his things that he needs for his existence in this world by earning a living, and with preparing for his ultimate existence in the world to come by learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. He says, in addition to saving man from indulging in sinful activity, which is what we just learned, Hashem compassionately did this in order that man be occupied with his pursuit of physical needs and spiritual betterment all the days of his life, and do not have the leisure to seek how things that he has no need to know, and which he in any case cannot grasp his mind. What he means over here is like this. Other than the fact that if you're going to sit around and do nothing all day, you're going to wind up sinning, he says there's another benefit to that. What winds up happening is if you sit around, you have too much time in your hands, you wind up thinking to yourself some stuff. He said, God rules this world. Who says? He starts having these futile thoughts. He starts saying to himself, how was this world created? Why was it created? When will it end? There's a lot of things that we talk about in Ashkafa things that you're not allowed to think about. Things that we can't comprehend because it's not possible for us. We don't understand. And later on in Shaar Habitachon, we're going to learn, I think in Perek Dal, Perek Hey, we're going to talk about the ideas that there's a lot of things that when we have Bitachon, we have to just believe in it because there's certain things that we can't comprehend. We comprehend extraterrestrial matters, things that Hashem puts in place. We can comprehend to a limit things on this world, things that b'derech hateva we can understand that. But things that Hashem creates that are extraterrestrial, we don't understand those things. And what he's saying over here is, if you have too much time in your hands, you're going to sit around and start having these bad thoughts. You're going to sit around, you're going to start thinking all these things, and you might wind up coming to a point where you start questioning Hashem's existence, you start questioning Hashem at all, as far as religion, maybe he does exist, but maybe who says with Yiddishkeit? So he says that by you having a full day, you're working, you have a schedule, you learn in the morning maybe, in the evening maybe a little bit, whatever it is, you go daven every single day, you have that schedule, right? That aids you from not sitting around and having these futile thoughts, and it aids you from not getting into position where you're like, what do I do now? And then you wind up doing sins. He says, he will not waste his time developing futile theories about such topics as what they were before the beginning of the universe, as I said, example, before its creation, what's going to happen afterwards. And Kamosha Omar HaChacham, that Shlomo HaMelech says, he has also put in preoccupation with us that the world into their mind so that man should not find what God has done from the beginning to the end of time. An example, in order for the man should not contemplate what was before the beginning of the universe and what will be after it ends. And so that's kind of the concept. You shouldn't be sitting around having such thoughts. Even if you thought they were legitimate thoughts, it's beyond your comprehension. You're not going to figure it out anyway. So the more you sit around and think about those things, you start contemplating it, the more questions you're going to have, the worse it's going to be for you. You're going to have a harder time existing as a Jew. You're going to have a harder time existing as a person. And unfortunately, these are the kind of things that leads to people becoming atheists, is because they have these kind of thoughts. Based on these reasons, there is an exception to the rule that people must be busy with earning a livelihood. If a person reaches such a high spiritual level that the two above mentioned benefits of Ishtadlus no longer apply to him, Hashem will free him from that burden of Ishtadlus. With that, we're going to get into tomorrow. And we're going to get into that concept, and we're going to talk about the concept a bit more as to who actually possesses that ability of such a lofty level that you don't need to consume your day with Ishtadlus. But before we conclude, I have an uncle who is kind of a coach, a personal life coach, and he once told me a story that a friend of his asked him if he could talk to his teenage son. His teenage son, no longer wanted to be religious, and he wasn't davening, he wasn't putting on tefillin, and he asked if he can talk to him and see if he can encourage him to have a better day. And so my uncle said, sure. And so they set up a meeting to meet with this young teenager. I think he was 16 or 17 at the time. And my uncle tells me like this. He says, the boy comes in, and the first thing he sits down, he tells my uncle, he goes, if you're trying to make me Jewish, if you're trying to make me religious, forget about it. I'm not interested. My uncle looked at him in the face, and he says, I have no interest in making you religious. He goes, but let me ask you a question. What do you do every single day? He goes, well, I go to sleep at 3 in the morning. I get up at 3 in the afternoon. And I hang out with my friends. He said, forget about religion for a second. Every single guy, every productive non-Jew also has a schedule. They get up at 6 a.m., they go to the gym, they get ready, they get onto the train, they go to the city, they go to the office, they're there at 9, they do their work, they finish at 5, they come home, they do dinner, maybe they go out, maybe they watch a movie. They have a schedule. Your problem is you don't have a schedule. You're wasting away every single one of your days by just going to sleep late because you're hanging out in the streets with your buddies. And it says you're not being productive. And we understand from this, and we know how teenagers are because we all were those teenagers, and that leads to doing a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing, getting involved in things that you shouldn't be getting involved in. And so the point is over here from the story is that we see a structure is required. A person needs structure. Everything in life requires structure. And that is exactly what Rav Av is trying to bring over here, is that by having structure, you're Ishtadlus in work, you're learning a little bit, you're doing things, and it can be any kind of structure, honestly, for that matter. If you have a structure in your day, you're a productive person in society. That helps you every single day. It helps you refrain from doing averos, obviously, because it helps you do stupid stuff. And it helps you also, like we just learned, it helps you from not having these interesting thoughts about God and maybe some other kind of interesting thoughts. Maybe it's worldly thoughts. Maybe it's thoughts of your own personal life. Maybe you're struggling. A lot of us struggle today. And by just keeping yourself busy, it prevents you from sitting around on the couch, scrolling through YouTube all day, and having these thoughts that I'm a nobody, or I'm not worth anything. Someone told me recently a story about someone who he felt that his life was meaningless. And so by sitting around all day and just doing nonsense, or not doing anything at all, not being productive, it leads you to have these thoughts. And not necessarily it's about thinking about Hashem. It can be about your own personal life. You start thinking into it, oh, my life is miserable, oh, this and that. No, get yourself a structure. Start bettering yourself. You'll get better. You'll have that structure. You'll get up every morning. You'll have productivity. You'll see that productivity, and you'll feel better about yourself. And that's another reason from my part, the way I view it, how structure works better in your life. Use that, guys. Have that structure. Don't let go of that structure. And even when you have a tough day, you could take a little break, but make sure you have that every single day there's certain things that you need to do. Maybe it's that shear. Maybe it's that exercise. Maybe you want to get that run in. Maybe you want to get that pump in at the gym. Whatever that is. Whatever it is for you, you do that. Whatever that vice is for you, part of your daily routine, part of your schedule, get it done. And that's going to help you. It's going to help you every single day as you as a person to get better. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and I love you all.